Chapter 1. The Dare I Never Asked For. The rustle of pages was the only sound in our corner of the library, until Sophie leaned over and whispered, "Don't look now, but you're the subject of a bet." I blinked at her. "What?" My pen froze over my notes. She slid her phone across the table. "I just walked past the guy's table near the vending machines, heard Liam Carter bragging to his buddies that he could make you fall for him in 2 weeks." I laughed under my breath, more out of disbelief than humor. "You've got to be kidding me." "I wish I was." "He even said he'd have you wrapped around his finger by mid-month." I stared at my notebook, my pulse climbing. "That's ridiculous. We've barely spoken." Sophie tilted her head toward the far end of the room. "He's over there now. Don't look." Naturally, I looked. Liam Carter sat in a patch of sunlight, leaning back in his chair like he owned the place. Perfect hair, lazy grin, sleeves pushed up just enough to show those forearms every girl seemed to swoon over. I pulled my gaze back fast. "Please, I'm not even his type." "You are today, apparently," Sophie said. "Jane, I know that smile of his is dangerous. Don't." Her voice cut off because he was suddenly walking toward us. I straightened in my chair, flipping a page just to have something to do. "Jane McGuire, right?" His voice was warm, confident. I didn't look up. "That's me." He rested one hand on the table. "Mind if I sit?" I glanced at Sophie, then at him. "Actually, I do. I'm studying." He chuckled like I'd told a joke. "Tough crowd." I was hoping to introduce myself properly. "We've been in the same lectures for a year," I said. "I think the ship has sailed." He slid into the chair across from me anyway. "Maybe I'm just slow." Sophie's eyes narrowed. "Or maybe you're just here to win a bet." Liam's grin faltered for half a second before snapping back. "Bet? That's new." I set my pen down. "Look, Liam, is that your name?" "It is." "Whatever game you're playing, I'm not interested." His gaze held mine. "Who said I'm playing a game?" Sophie snorted. "Half the campus knows you are." "I came over to say hi," he said. "Is that a crime?" I leaned back. "Depends on the motive." He spread his hands, feigning innocence. "Maybe I just want to get to know you." "Maybe you should try someone else," I said. "Someone who doesn't mind being the punchline to a locker room joke." He tilted his head. "You think I do that?" "I think you've done it before." For a moment, something sharper flashed in his eyes, but it was gone too fast to read. "All right," he said, pushing his chair back. "If you ever decide I'm not the villain in your story, you know where to find me." He walked away, hands in pockets, not looking back. Sophie exhaled loudly. "Wow, he's good at pretending he doesn't care." I tried to refocus on my notes, but my pen tapped against the page. "It's just, why me? I'm not part of their crowd." "Exactly," she said. "That's probably why." I frowned. "I'm not going to give him the satisfaction." "Good," Sophie said. "Because guys like him are trouble," I finished for her. "I know." She leaned closer. "Still, if he keeps trying, I'll shut it down." Her smile was faint. "Just make sure you mean it." I gave a short laugh. "You think I'm stupid enough to fall for someone who made me a dare?" Sophie didn't laugh back. "I think you're human. And he's charming in a way that could make you forget why you're angry." I turned the page and started writing again, but my chest felt tight. "Then I'll remember harder." She watched me for a long second. "Jane, what?" Her voice dropped. "Watch your heart, or he'll play you without even trying." Chapter 2. First move, wrong move. The bell over the cafe door jingled, and I didn't even have to look up. "Let me guess," I muttered to Maya, who was wiping the counter beside me. "Tall, smug, and thinks he's funny?" She glanced toward the entrance, already smirking. "You've got a stalker vibe situation, huh?" "Not stalker," I said, forcing a polite smile for the next customer in line. "Persistent basketball captain." "Morning, Jane," Liam said as he stepped up to the counter like we'd been friends forever. He wore confidence like a designer jacket, tailored, smug, and impossible to ignore. I didn't bother to look at him. "What do you want?" He leaned on the counter. eyes glinting with the kind of charm that worked on everyone but me. Coffee, black, and maybe a smile with it? $2.50, I replied flatly. Maya tried not to laugh as I slid the cup toward him, avoiding his gaze. Thanks, he said, tapping the tip jar with 2 fingers and a wink. See you around. Not if I see you first, I muttered under my breath, but his grin said he'd heard me. By noon, he was outside my lecture hall like he'd mapped my entire schedule. Didn't know you were in Econ 302, he said, falling into step beside me. I'm not, I replied. He looked genuinely intrigued. Then why were you in there? I stopped walking. Liam, is this part of the bet, or do you just like annoying me? He smiled like I just handed him a bouquet. Can't a guy enjoy good company? Before I could answer, Sophie appeared from down the hall, her eyes narrowing like a hawk spotting prey. Or maybe, she said, folding her arms, he's just making sure his little challenge doesn't fail. Hi, Sophie, Liam greeted smoothly, as if she hadn't just accused him of emotional manipulation. She ignored him. Jane, you need to hear what I heard at lunch. Later, I cut her off. I've got class. Liam stepped aside, mock bowing. After you. I walked past without another word, but I could feel his gaze burning at my back. It was infuriating, and worse, a little thrilling. The next morning, I thought I was safe during my jog. The air was cool, the path empty, and for a moment I felt like I'd outrun him. Until a shadow fell over me. You run early, Liam said, jogging easily beside me like some cardio god. I groaned. You're kidding me. Just happened to be here, he said, not even breathing hard. Right, I muttered. What's next? Following me to the grocery store? He grinned. Do you need help carrying your groceries? Do you ever hear yourself? All the time, he said. I like what I hear. I sped up. You won't for long. He matched my pace, chuckling. That sounds like a challenge. Not everything's a game, Carter. He slowed slightly, voice softening just enough to make me glance his way. Maybe not, but some things are worth chasing. And that, annoyingly, stuck in my head for the rest of the run. By Friday, Sophie had compiled a running list of sightings. Cafe, lecture hall, jogging trail, library. She ticked them off on her fingers. And yesterday, he was talking to Maya about your favorite coffee order. I sipped my drink, pretending it didn't bother me. He's relentless. Jane, she said, leaning closer. His friends were watching you two at lunch. They smirked like they already knew how it ends. My jaw tightened. Good. Let them think that. I'll flip it on him. Sophie blinked. You're going to play along? Just enough to watch him fail. She grinned. Dangerous. I like it. Later that afternoon, I pushed open the library doors, and there he was, sitting at my usual table. This is my spot, I said, arms crossed. I saved it for you, he replied without missing a beat, gesturing to the chair across from him. I sat, mostly to keep him from smirking like he'd already won. What's today's fake coincidence? No coincidence, he said, leaning forward. Just thought you might need help with your books. I don't. He reached for one anyway. Careful. His chair leg caught on the carpet, and he went sprawling sideways in a spectacular crash. The silence that followed was glorious. Then I snorted, an ungraceful, genuine laugh that escaped before I could stop it. Liam looked up from the floor, grinning through his embarrassment. You laughed. No, I didn't, I said quickly, hiding my smile behind a book. You did, he said, standing and dusting himself off. That's a win. It's not a win, I said, but my lips twitched. It is to me. He leaned closer across the table, his voice lower now, teasing but warm. You're cute when you try to be tough. My pulse betrayed me, skipping a beat. You're delusional. Maybe, he said, but you're still here. I gathered my books. Enjoy it, Carter. It won't happen again. Promises, promises, he murmured. I turned sharply, walking toward the exit. But halfway there, his voice caught up to me. Hey, Jane. I paused despite myself. He held up the book he'd saved from falling. You forgot your notes. I walked back, snatched it from him, and glared. You really don't know when to quit, do you? He tilted his head, eyes glinting. Not when it's interesting. I rolled my eyes, but as I stepped into the afternoon light, my chest felt annoyingly warm. I hated that my guard had slipped, even for a second, because deep down, some traitorous part of me wasn't sure I wanted him to stop trying. That night, I told Sophie everything. You laughed? She gasped. Like, actually laughed? Barely, I said, flopping onto her bed. He tripped. Sophie grinned. Classic. So, what now? You still planning to flip it? I hesitated. Of course. I just need to make him think he's winning. Careful, she warned, twirling a strand of hair. Guys like Liam, they turn the game into something else. You play too long, you start to forget it's a game. I scoffed, but the unease in my stomach said she wasn't entirely wrong. Outside, the rain started to fall, tapping against the window like a slow heartbeat. I stared into the dark, wondering why his stupid grin kept replaying in my head. Maybe I was already in deeper than I meant to be. And maybe, just maybe, my first move had already been the wrong one. Chapter 3, The Walls I Built, Extended Edition. By Monday, I'd perfected the art of ignoring Liam's texts. Morning, Jane. Ignore. Coffee on me? Ignore. You know this silence is only making me more curious. Ignore harder. Sophie caught me glaring at my phone between classes. Still alive over there? Unfortunately, I muttered. He's persistent. She smirked. You like that? I like peace, I said. And he's allergic to it. Sophie leaned against the wall. You realize your version of peace looks suspiciously like denial, right? I shot her a look. What's that supposed to mean? It means, she said, holding up my phone. You keep checking his messages for someone who supposedly doesn't care. I snatched it back. I'm just making sure he stops. Uh-huh, she said, clearly unconvinced. That afternoon, as I was packing up after lecture, Liam appeared beside my desk like a shadow that smelled faintly of cedar and arrogance. Hey, he said casually, slinging his bag over his shoulder. How's statistics treating you? Fine. You sure? I'm pretty good with numbers. Could tutor you. I raised a brow. I'm not failing. Tutoring isn't just for failing, he said, leaning against the desk. It's for bonding. I laughed once, dry. You're unbelievable. Come on, he said, walking backward toward the door. 1 hour. If I'm annoying, you can ban me from all future interactions. I already banned you in my head. He grinned. You're still thinking about it, though. He wasn't wrong, and that irritated me more than his smirk. Against my better judgment, I texted him later. Fine. 1 hour. Library. 6 p.m. His reply came instantly. Can't wait, Professor Jane. When I arrived, he was already there, a notebook open, pen tapping to an invisible beat. Right on time, he said. Points for punctuality. This isn't a date, I warned, setting my books down. Of course not, he said with mock seriousness. Just me helping a brilliant mind like yours shine even brighter. I rolled my eyes. Let's get this over with. He grinned. You say that like you don't enjoy a little challenge. 10 minutes in, he was explaining regression analysis using pizza toppings. So if pepperoni is your independent variable. That makes no sense, I interrupted. Sure it does, he said. If the presence of pepperoni predicts happiness, I snorted before I could stop myself. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You laughed, he said, pointing triumphantly. Again. I'm laughing at you, not with you. Still counts. I shook my head, but the smile wouldn't leave. His ridiculous logic shouldn't make statistics easier, but somehow it did. As the minutes slipped by, my annoyance started to melt into something else, something unsettlingly light. His confidence wasn't arrogant tonight, it was easy, genuine, disarming. So, what's with the fortress? He asked suddenly, his pen pausing mid-note. What fortress? The one you've built around yourself, he said without looking up. I hesitated. Not your business. Fair, he said softly. But it's there. I busied myself flipping through the textbook, pretending to read. My pulse betrayed me. Steady, but sharp. If only he knew. The fortress wasn't built for decoration. It was survival. I wasn't about to tell him about my ex, how he'd smiled the same way, promised the same comfort, only to use me for essays and project help before cheating like it was a sport. That was my reminder. Charming men break you if you let them. By the time we wrapped up, the library was nearly empty. The lamps glowed gold against the windows, and the silence between us felt heavier than before. He closed his notebook. Not bad for a fake tutor, huh? You were tolerable, I admitted, stacking my books. He chuckled. I'll take that as high praise. You shouldn't. Still sounds like progress. He stood, slinging his bag over one shoulder. Come on, I'll walk you home. You don't have to. I want to, he said, already heading toward the door like it was non-negotiable. I sighed, but followed. The walk was quiet, the kind of quiet that stretched, not strained. The city hummed faintly. Distant cars, soft laughter from a nearby cafe, the crunch of our shoes against the pavement. Streetlights flickered overhead, and our steps fell into rhythm. At one point, a gust of wind caught my scarf, and before I could fix it, his hand shot out, catching the loose end. Got it, he said. Thanks, I mumbled, tugging it back. Our fingers brushed. Just a fleeting touch, but it was enough to send a flicker through me. He noticed. Of course he did. His smirk softened into something almost sincere. See, he murmured, you don't always have to keep everyone at arm's length. I looked ahead. Some people deserve the distance. Maybe, he said, his tone low. But maybe not everyone. For a heartbeat, it felt like the world narrowed to just that street, that wind, and the quiet pull between us that I refused to name. At my building, he stomped. Well, see you tomorrow. I blinked. That's it? No cheesy line? He smiled faintly. Not tonight. Feeling sick? I teased. Just giving you space, he said, until you decide whether I've earned a little back. I didn't answer. He gave me a small nod and turned away, hands in his pockets, his silhouette fading under the streetlight glow. For the first time, I didn't feel like running from it. And that scared me more than anything. Later, in my apartment, Sophie was sprawled on my bed, scrolling through her phone when I walked in. She glanced up immediately. Well, what? Don't play dumb. You texted him, didn't you? I tossed my bag aside. We studied, that's it. She arched a brow. Studied? Is that what the kids are calling it now? Very funny. So? She pressed. What's he like when he's not being a cocky flirt? I hesitated. Different. Sophie smirked. Different as in bad different or good different? I stared at the floor. That's the problem. I don't know yet. She threw a pillow at me. You're so doomed. Am not. Oh, you so are, she said, grinning. Just wait until he actually does something nice. You'll start questioning every boundary you've got. I rolled my eyes, but she wasn't wrong. When the lights were off and the city hummed outside my window, I lay awake, replaying the walk, the look in his eyes, the warmth in his voice. He was trouble, wrapped in charm and disguised as good intentions. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't sure I wanted to win this war. Because the walls I'd built to keep people out, he wasn't breaking them. He was finding the door. Chapter 4, Lines Blur. Coffee? Liam asked, holding out a cup like it was a peace treaty. I eyed him suspiciously. What's in it? Caffeine and goodwill, he said. Promise. Against my better judgment, I took it. You know bribery isn't a personality. He grinned. Neither is stubbornness, but you wear it well. Flattery's not going to make me trust you. Didn't think it would, he said, leaning back in his chair. But it might make you laugh. I didn't, but my lips twitched. And that was enough for him to smirk like he'd scored a point. That afternoon, we sat in the quiet corner of the cafe, both pretending to study. The hum of the espresso machine and soft jazz from the speakers filled the space between us. I was halfway through a paragraph when his voice broke the silence. My mom's in the hospital again, he said, out of nowhere. I looked up. What? He didn't look at me. Yeah, lupus flare-up. She's been sick for years, but this one's bad. My chest tightened. I'm sorry, Liam. He shrugged like it was nothing, but the tension in his jaw betrayed him. Keeping my scholarship is the only way I can help her right now. Without it. He trailed off, staring into his untouched cup. That's why you're so obsessed with basketball? It's not an obsession, he said quietly. It's survival. His voice wasn't the usual confident drawl. It was low, tired, and too honest. I wasn't used to that version of him. I work 2 jobs just to afford tuition, I admitted before I could stop myself. Some days I wonder if I'm even going to make it. He glanced up, studying me like I'd just peeled back a layer he'd been dying to see. What jobs? Cafe and campus library. I barely have time to breathe. He nodded slowly. Guess we're both running on fumes. Guess so, I said, and before I knew it, I was smiling. A real one. Over the next week, the moments started adding up like quiet threads I didn't know how to untangle. Coffee runs between classes, study breaks that turned into debates about music, him swearing the weekend was overrated, me threatening to revoke his humanity. Late-night walks when the campus was nearly silent, the air cool and heavy with the smell of rain on stone. He made me laugh when I didn't want to. He made me forget why I had sworn to keep my distance. One night, we sat on the steps outside the library, books forgotten, watching the flicker of the street lamps. You ever think about quitting? He asked suddenly. All the time, I said, staring out at the empty quad. But then I remember why I started. Same, he murmured. His voice was soft, too soft, and something in my chest tugged painfully. I didn't want to ask, but I did anyway. Does your mom know you're here this late? He shook his head. She'd tell me to go to bed. Which is exactly why I didn't call. I laughed quietly, and he smiled at the sound. For a second, it felt like the night folded in on us. Just his eyes, the amber streetlight, and the unspoken current running somewhere between curiosity and danger. Sophie cornered me 2 days later in the hallway. You're smiling more, she said, crossing her arms. I smile plenty, I replied, avoiding her gaze. Not like this, she said pointedly. Be careful, Jane. The bet doesn't just disappear because you forget about it. I haven't forgotten, I said too quickly. She studied me, unimpressed. Then why does it look like you're falling for him? I swallowed hard. Because maybe I'm just getting to know him. Or maybe that's exactly how he wins. Her words sank in like cold water. I hated that she might be right. That evening, Liam walked me home after another so-called study session that had devolved into teasing, caffeine, and laughter echoing off the library walls. You have an eyelash, he said suddenly, stopping me mid-sentence. Before I could react, he stepped closer, too close, and brushed something from my cheek. His fingertips lingered, feather-light, just long enough for my pulse to forget its rhythm. Got it, he said softly. My heart stuttered. Thanks. Anytime, he murmured. His smile was warm under the glow of the streetlight. Too warm. The world around us blurred, the passing cars, the noise of the city, and all I could focus on was how close he stood. I took a tiny step back, needing space to breathe. You should go. You've got practice early, right? He nodded, but didn't move right away. Yeah, he hesitated. I like walking you home. I looked away. Don't make it a habit. Too late, he said, and for once, his grin wasn't cocky. It was quiet, sincere. Later, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, replaying that moment on an endless loop. His hand brushing my skin. His voice soft, unguarded. I'd sworn I wouldn't let him in. I'd promised myself I'd win this game. But now, I wasn't sure I even remembered what the rules were. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Liam asked, made it home. Try to sleep, overachiever. I stared at the message, thumb hovering over the screen. Then I typed back before I could overthink it. Me, you too, athlete. His reply came seconds later. Liam asked, Good night, Jane. I didn't answer, but a smile tugged at my lips anyway. The next day, during my cafe shift, he showed up again, this time with a cup already in hand. For you, he said. Extra shot of espresso. Light caramel. Maya told me your go-to order. I blinked. You bribed my coworker? Bribed is such an ugly word, he said, leaning on the counter. I prefer researched. I rolled my eyes but accepted the cup. You're ridiculous. Yet here you are, still talking to me. I hated how right he was. He tapped his cup lightly against mine. Truce? For now, I said. He smiled, that boyish, maddening smile that made it hard to breathe. Good enough for me. That night, I told Sophie about the coffee, the texts, the walks. She listened quietly, before sighing. You're in deep. No, I protested. I'm just… Jane, she interrupted gently. You stopped calling him Carter. That's how it starts. I fell silent, realizing she was right. Somewhere between the banter and the borrowed smiles, I'd stopped keeping score. And somewhere between the first coffee and the last goodnight text, the lines I drew to protect myself had started to blur. Chapter 5. The Cruel Truth. Jane? I turned at the sound of my name and froze. The tall brunette with flawless makeup stood in front of me, her designer bag draped over one arm like an accessory to her ego. You're Liam's friend, right? She asked, her smile razor sharp. I hesitated. And you are? Amber, she said, tilting her head. His girlfriend. The words slammed into me like cold water. Girlfriend? Mm-hmm, she purred. I just wanted to congratulate you. My voice came out tight. On what? She smirked. On almost winning the bet. My stomach clenched. What bet? The one Liam made with his teammates, she said, voice syrup sweet. 2 weeks to make you fall for him. $500 on the line. Honestly, he made it sound way too easy. I blinked, the ground slipping somewhere beneath me. You're lying. She shrugged. Ask him. He told them you were different, but that just made it more fun. And then she walked away, leaving perfume and poison in her wake. By the time I spotted Liam across the quad, my pulse was a war drum. He was laughing with his friends, like the world hadn't just shattered around me. I didn't think, I just moved. Jane, he said when he saw me, smile faltering. Hey, what's the bet, Liam? My voice cracked through the air, sharper than I meant. His friends went still. He frowned. What? Don't play dumb, I snapped. 2 weeks, $500, making me fall for you. Tyler looked away, guilt flashing across his face. Josh smirked. Guess she found out. The laughter died. I turned back to Liam. Tell me it's not true. He opened his mouth. Jane, Don't. I cut him off, the word trembling. Don't say you were going to tell me. Don't say it was different with me. Amber already gave me the highlight reel. His jaw tightened. Amber, I don't care, I hissed. You could have stopped it. You didn't. I didn't know. I laughed, hollow and shaking. You didn't know it would work? Jane, it wasn't like that. Save it. My voice cracked, but I kept my chin up. Save it for someone who still believes you. I walked away before he could follow. My chest ached so badly, it felt like breathing scraped against broken glass. By the time I reached my apartment, the adrenaline was gone and the tears hit hard. It wasn't just the bet. It was every single thing that came before it. Every look, every late-night walk, every stupid smile I thought was real. I dropped onto my bed, curling my fists into the blanket. My phone buzzed with his name again and again until I couldn't take it. Liam. 3 missed calls. Liam, please, let me explain. Liam, it wasn't supposed to happen like this. Liam, I'm sorry, Jane. Sorry. The most useless word in the dictionary. Hours later, Sophie burst through the door. Oh my God, what happened? I didn't look up. You were right. She froze. About what? The bet. Her face fell. Jane. Amber told me. Sophie cursed under her breath and sat beside me. That son of a… I should have listened, I said quietly. You warned me. Hey, she said softly. You trusted him. That's not a crime. Feels like one. Sophie sighed and pulled me into a hug. I didn't realize how much I needed it until my body gave in, shaking against her shoulder. I hate him, I whispered. I know, but I hate myself more for believing he was different. The next morning, campus felt colder, like even the sunlight didn't want to touch me. People still talked and laughed and moved around me, but everything sounded muffled, distant. When I got to the cafe, Maya gave me a cautious look. You won't pay? Fine. Jane, please, I said, forcing a smile. Don't. I lasted 10 minutes before walking out mid-shift. The air outside stung. My chest felt hollow, my body moving on autopilot, until I found myself near the basketball court. He was there, of course he was, alone this time. throwing shot after shot, each one harder than the last. He saw me. The ball hit the rim and rolled away. "Jane, please." He jogged toward me, breath uneven. "Let me explain." "Explain what?" I said, my voice calm in that dangerous way calm can be. "That I was just another challenge? A box to tick?" He shook his head. "It started that way, yeah, but it didn't stay that way." I stared at him, disbelief twisting into anger. "Do you even hear yourself?" He stepped closer. "I fell for you, Jane. I swear to God, Don't," I said, stepping back. "Don't you dare use those words. You don't get to." "Please," he said quietly, eyes desperate. "It's the truth." "Your truth," I said, "and it's cruel." He flinched like I'd hit him. "Every time you smiled at me," I continued, voice breaking. "Every time you walked me home or made me laugh, it was all part of the act." "No," he said. "Not after the first week. Not after I got to know you. Then why didn't you stop?" He looked down, shoulders trembling. "Because by the time I realized what I wanted, it was already too late." "Right," I said bitterly. "Because hurting someone is fine as long as you feel bad about it later." "Jane." "Goodbye, Liam." I turned before he could answer. This time, he didn't follow. That night, I deleted his messages. All of them. Every photo, every text, every tiny piece of him that had found a way into my phone, and somehow into me. But no matter how many times I hit delete, his voice still echoed. "Guess we're both running on fumes. I like walking you home. You don't always have to keep everyone at arm's length." I'd let him in. I'd let him break through every wall I swore was unshakable. And now there was nothing left standing. Sophie called from the other room. "You need anything?" I wiped my face. "No, just sleep." But I didn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the city lights leaking through the blinds, thinking about how easy it had been to believe him. Somewhere between his laughter and my surrender, I'd forgotten one simple truth. Games are always fun for the player, never for the one who doesn't know they're being played. Chapter 6. Silence hurts louder. My phone buzzed again. I flipped it face down. "Answer him," Sophie said softly. "No." She watched me wipe the counter for the third time, the rag already dry. "You don't have to be brave with me." "I'm not being brave," I said. "I'm being done." The phone buzzed again. I turned it off and shoved it into the drawer, like I could trap the past in there too. Maya poked her head out from the back room. "You okay, Jane?" "I'm working." She nodded and disappeared. The espresso machine hissed, the milk frother screamed, and the bell above the cafe door kept ringing like it was mocking me. Every sound felt too sharp, too alive. Sophie leaned on the counter. "He was outside your class this morning." "I know." "You walked past him." "Yes." "He looked wrecked." I swallowed. "Good." She winced. "You don't mean that." "I don't know what I mean anymore," I whispered. By closing, the rain came hard. The kind that blurs everything, turns the world into moving glass. I locked the cafe door and pulled my hood up. Across the street, Liam stood under a flickering streetlight, soaked to the bone, hands in his pockets. "Keep walking," Sophie whispered beside me. "I'm not stopping," I said, but my steps faltered anyway. He saw me. "Jane," his voice cracked against the rain. I kept walking. He didn't follow. 2 days passed, then 3. His messages piled up like a storm I refused to open. "Please talk to me. I'm sorry. I deserve whatever you say. I'll wait." I muted everything. Texts, calls, notifications. Silence became my armor. I took extra shifts. I changed my routes between classes, my seat in lectures, even my jogging path. But it didn't matter. The ache found me anyway. On the third night, when I came home drenched from another long walk, there was a note taped to my door. "I'll be outside at 7. If you never want to see me again, I'll go." Sophie read it over my shoulder. "It's 6:58. "I'm not going," I said automatically. But you're standing, she pointed out. I'm not going. But my hand was already closing around my keys. She sighed. I'll be here if you come back crying. I managed a weak smile. You always are. He was waiting exactly where the note promised. Sitting on the building steps, hood up, rain dripping from his sleeves. When he saw me, his breath caught like he'd been holding it for hours. Thank you for coming, he said. Make it fast. He nodded, water running down his cheek like he didn't even notice. The bet was real. I know. It was stupid, he said, and ugly, and I wish I could go back to the minute Tyler said it and tell him to shut up. You didn't. No, he said quietly. I didn't. Why? He looked down. Because I wanted to be the guy who could make anyone fall. Because I was scared of being a joke first. I let the rain hit my face. Congratulations. You became a joke anyway. His shoulders hunched. I deserve that. You deserve more, I said, and not in a good way. He looked up, eyes raw. I'm not going to ask you to forgive me. I know I don't have that right. Then why are you here? His voice broke. Everything changed after the first day. I laughed once, bitterly. That line should be printed on a t-shirt. I'm serious, he said. I thought you'd be another story I told to make myself feel big. And then you weren't. You were... He shook his head. You were honest. You were funny. You were you. You were lying, I said. I stopped, he whispered. When? The first time you rolled your eyes and still smiled, he said. The library. I tripped like an idiot and you laughed, and something cracked open. I stared past him, at the way the streetlight reflected in puddles. Amber said you bragged. He flinched. I told them I liked you. I didn't know how to sound sincere around people who would laugh if I tried. So you bragged, I said flatly. Yes, so you lied to them, and to me. I lied to everyone, he said, voice rough. But mostly to myself. I shook my head. Real love doesn't start with lies, Liam. He closed his eyes. I know. Do you? I asked quietly. Because all I see is a guy who wanted to win. He swallowed. I wanted to win until I wanted you to win. I wanted you not to get hurt. I wanted to protect the thing I was risking. My laugh was small and bitter. Poetry in the rain. Did you practice that? No, he said. I practiced apologies. Hundreds of them. None are enough. Silence stretched. The rain softened to a mist. He tried again. I'll leave the team if that helps. I'll pay back anything they gave me. You can't pay this back. He nodded. I know. I can't look at you and not see the first moment you chose a joke over me. He looked up. Eyes wet, not from the rain this time. I fell for you, for real. The words just sat there, heavy and uninvited. I don't care, I said, though my voice betrayed me. I can't make that mean something good. It means I won't stop trying to be better, he said, even if you never speak to me again. Do that for yourself, I said, not for me. I will, he whispered. I turned toward the door. We're done. Jane, real love doesn't start with lies, I said again, and that's all we had. His hands dropped to his sides. I'm sorry. I opened the door and stepped inside. His voice followed, low and cracking. Jane, please. I closed the door. The sound of it cut him off. Just wood. Just hinges. A click, but it felt like a wall, too heavy to ever move again. Inside, the quiet pressed in on me. I didn't cry. I just stood there, listening to nothing. And somehow, that silence hurt louder than anything he'd ever said. Chapter 7. Breaking Point. The cafe was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every drip from the espresso machine sound like a clock ticking too loudly. It was almost midnight. The world outside was wet and hazy, and inside, only the low hum of the lights and the faint scent of roasted beans kept me company. I was wiping down the tables when I noticed him. Liam sat in the far corner, hoodie pulled up, staring into an empty cup. His posture was heavy, defeated. He looked smaller somehow, like someone had drained all the light out of him and left only the shell behind. I told myself to keep working, to ignore him, to stay busy until he got the message and left. Instead, I poured a cup of black coffee and carried it over. "This one's on the house," I said, setting it down. His head lifted slowly. His eyes were rimmed red, exhaustion clinging to his face. "Jane." "Don't thank me," I said. "It's just coffee." "Still," he murmured, fingers curling around the cup like it was the only warm thing left in his life. For a second, neither of us said anything. The rain outside pressed softly against the windows. "You look terrible," I said finally. He gave a humorless huff. "Amber dumped me." I raised a brow. "You mean the girlfriend you forgot to mention?" "Yeah, that one." His gaze dropped back to the coffee. "Tyler and Josh. They're done with me too." "Why? Lose another bet?" His eyes flicked up. "Because I stopped playing along. Because I stopped laughing at their crap." His voice cracked slightly. "I don't even know who I am without the show." "Maybe that's the point," I said quietly. "Figure it out." He swallowed hard. "You were the only thing that made me feel like I wasn't faking my whole life." The words landed heavier than I wanted them to. I took a small step back, searching for distance that didn't exist anymore. "That's not my problem, Liam." "I know," he said quickly. "I'm not asking you to fix me. I just needed to say it." I don't know why I sat down. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe I just wanted to see if there was anything left to break. I pulled out the chair across from him. "So what now?" He shrugged, eyes tracing the rim of his cup. "I keep showing up for classes. Try to pass. Try to keep my scholarship. Try to—" He trailed off. "To what? To stop missing you," he said softly. Something inside me twisted. "You broke me, Liam." "I know. And now you're sitting here like I'm supposed to forget that?" "I'm sitting here," he said, "because I had nowhere else to go." The words came out so small, so human, that they cracked the last of my anger. I didn't want to care, but I did. We sat in silence for a while. The hum of the fridge filled the empty air. I studied the faint bruises under his eyes, the tremor in his fingers, the way his knee bounced, like he couldn't stop the restlessness that lived inside him. He looked up. "Why are you still here?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe I'm too tired to walk away tonight." He gave a faint, broken smirk. "I'll take it." "Don't," I warned. "This isn't a win for you." "I know," he said. "It's just nice. Talking without you looking at me like I'm a stranger." "You are a stranger," I said. I exhaled. "I'm just remembering the part of you that almost felt real." He looked down. "That was real, Jane." I didn't answer. Closing time came faster than I expected. The clock hit 12. The rain outside slowed to a drizzle. I stacked chairs on tables while he lingered, still nursing what was probably cold coffee by now. "Need help?" he asked. "You've done enough damage," I said, but the bite in my voice was half-hearted. He stood anyway, flipping chairs one by one. "Remember when I tripped over that chair in the library?" A reluctant smile tugged at my lips. "Hard to forget." "You laughed," he said quietly. "I don't think I realized how much I liked your laugh until then." "Don't make this sentimental," I said. Too late. When the last chair was up, I leaned against the counter. The exhaustion finally caught up to me, the kind that seeps into your bones. "You should go," I said. He nodded, but didn't move right away. "Thanks for the coffee, Jane. And for not walking out the second you saw me. Don't read too much into it." He smiled faintly. "I won't, but I'll remember it." He left quietly. The bell above the door barely made a sound. I watched him through the window as he crossed the street. Hood pulled up, the night swallowing him whole. For the first time in weeks, I hadn't felt the urge to slam a door in his face. And that scared me more than anything. Later, as I turned off the lights, I caught my reflection in the cafe window. Pale, tired, eyes darker than I remembered. I didn't look angry anymore. Just hollow. Somewhere deep down, a voice whispered, "You still care." I shoved it down, locked the door, and stepped into the cool air. The street smelled of wet asphalt and rain-soaked leaves. Every step home felt heavier, like the weight of everything I hadn't said was pressing down harder than gravity. When I reached my apartment, Sophie was half asleep on the couch, a blanket draped over her shoulders. She stirred when she heard the door. "You saw him," she murmured. "Yeah." Her eyes opened fully. "And?" I hesitated. He looked lost. "Good," she said automatically, but there was no conviction in her voice. I set my bag down. "He said he misses me." Sophie sighed. "They all say that when the silence gets too loud." "Maybe." "You didn't let him back in, did you?" "No," I said quietly. But I didn't slam the door either. She studied me for a long moment before nodding. "That's worse." I didn't argue. She was right. In bed, the darkness felt heavier than usual. I kept replaying his voice, his hands on the cup, the way he'd said I had nowhere else to go. I wanted to hate him again. I wanted to rebuild the walls. But exhaustion has a cruel way of softening edges. And somewhere between regret and forgiveness, I realized I wasn't sure which one I feared more. Chapter 8. The Choice I Didn't See Coming. Wait. He froze. His hand rested on the metal bar. The gym's hum filled the space between us, low and steady, like the building itself was holding its breath. He turned slowly. "What?" I didn't have an answer ready. I hadn't planned the word. It had escaped, raw and trembling. "I don't know," I said. "Just don't go yet." He let the door ease shut. The clang echoed, final but softer this time. Rain pressed faintly against the high windows. The air smelled of sweat and polish and something fragile, like the space between a heartbeat and an apology. He dropped his bag. "You said trust is slow." I did. He waited, eyes searching my face. "So what is this?" I exhaled. A pause. He nodded once, cautious. "I can live with that." We stood in the middle of the court, the world narrowed to varnished wood and overhead lights. "Why did you come tonight?" he asked. I hesitated. "Because I wanted to know if you'd still show up when no one was watching." "And?" "You did." "That's something," he asked carefully. "Don't push it." He smiled, faint but real. "Noted." I walked toward the bleachers, sitting where the air felt less charged. He joined me after a moment, leaving one seat between us. The silence wasn't sharp this time. It was tired, familiar, almost kind. "I kept thinking about what you said," he murmured. "About choice. And I used to think choosing meant winning. Now I think it just means staying when it's uncomfortable." I stared at the floor. "That's new for you." "Yeah," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Turns out discomfort's the only thing that makes you grow." "You sound like my therapist." "You have one?" "I should." He laughed softly, and the sound surprised us both. For a while, we just sat. The lights buzzed overhead. Somewhere, water dripped rhythmically into a bucket. "I'm scared," I said finally. "Of me?" "Of me," I corrected. "Of what forgiving you might mean. Of who I was before all this." "You don't have to forgive me," he said quickly. "Not now, not ever." "I know. He trailed off, jaw tightening. "I don't want to be another scar you have to explain." I looked at him then, really looked. The exhaustion under his eyes, the slow tremor in his hands. The boy who'd been built on pressure and pride and was only now learning what it meant to be honest. "You already are," I said quietly. "But maybe scars aren't all bad." He blinked. You mean that? I mean they remind you we're not to walk barefoot again. He smiled sadly. Then I'll learn to wear shoes. The clock above the scoreboard ticked past 1 a.m. You should get some rest, I said. He stood, but didn't move away. You still mad? Yes. Good. Good? He nodded. Means there's still something left under it. I shook my head. You really shouldn't be this good at finding meaning in pain. He shrugged. Maybe that's all I'm good at. No, I said. You're good at making messes too. That earned a laugh, the real kind, soft and startled. We walked out together. The hallway lights flickered on as we passed. Outside, the rain had stopped. The pavement glistened, reflecting the glow from the gym windows like a second, quieter world. He stopped at the edge of the lot. Want me to walk you back? I hesitated. Then, no, but you can walk beside me. His lips twitched into the smallest, most careful smile I'd ever seen on him. Deal. The walk was wordless. Our steps echoed in sync. Every few seconds, our shoulders brushed, the faintest contact, enough to feel alive, not enough to make promises. At the corner where our paths split, he stopped. This is me. I know. He looked at me for a long time, like memorizing the sight of something he didn't want to forget. Thanks for not letting me walk out before. I didn't stop you, I said. I just delayed the exit. Still matters. Don't make it poetic. He smiled. I wouldn't dare. I turned toward my street. Good night, Liam. Good night, Jane. He didn't move until I did. When I glanced back, he was still standing there under the streetlight, his breath visible in the cold air, watching the space where I'd been. Back in my apartment, the clock read 1:43 a.m. Sophie stirred on the couch again. You went to him, she mumbled. Not exactly. Close enough. She yawned. How bad was it? Less bad than before. Her eyes cracked open. That's progress or danger. Hard to tell with you two. I know. She pulled the blanket over her head. Wake me if you decide to forgive him, so I can prepare my disappointed face. I laughed quietly. Go to sleep, drama queen. In my room, I sat on the bed, shoes still on, staring at the floor. He'd looked different tonight. Not like the captain or the charmer. Just a boy trying to rebuild from the rubble. The anger was still there, but it wasn't sharp anymore. It was tired. It was fading into something gentler. Something that scared me more than hate ever could. Understanding. I lay back and closed my eyes. His voice lingered. I'm not asking for another chance. Maybe that was why I'd told him to wait. Because for the first time, he hadn't asked for anything. Outside, dawn began to soften the sky. Some choices arrive loud, with trumpets and fireworks. Others slip quietly through the cracks of exhaustion, whispering, not yet, instead of never. Tonight had been that kind of choice. The one I didn't see coming. Not forgiveness, not love, just the fragile beginning of maybe. Chapter 9. Falling, but not like before. Ground rules, I said. Liam leaned back in his chair at the cafe. Hit me. No touching without asking. He grinned. Even high fives? Especially high fives, I said. Noted. No surprises, I added. His brow arched. Like showing up everywhere you go? Exactly like that. Fine, he said. What else? If you lie about anything, it's over. His grin faded. Fair. We clinked coffee cups like it was a signed contract. The sound was small, but it felt like starting over. The first week was awkward. Hey, he said outside my lecture hall. Hi, I replied. Silence stretched thin. This is weird, he admitted. It's supposed to be, I said. We're not pretending anymore. Right, he said, hands shoved in his pockets. So, library later? Sure, but bring your own books. We read at opposite ends of the same table. Every so often, he'd slide a note toward me. Do you think Professor Hale owns more than one tie? I bit back a smile and scribbled, "No, he washes it once a semester." He tried not to laugh out loud, failed quietly, and the librarian shushed him. It was ridiculous and human and safe. One night after my late shift, he walked me home. "You didn't have to," I said. "I wanted to," he replied. "Besides, it's safer." "Since when do you care about safe?" "Since you," he said simply. We passed under a streetlight, and I saw him glance at me, but he didn't reach for my hand. The space between us felt deliberate, respectful, careful, earned. Sophie noticed the change. "You two look different," she said over lunch. "Different how?" "Like you're both trying not to mess it up," she said. "It's kind of sweet. Annoying, but sweet." "I'm not falling for him," I said. "Maybe not," she said. "But you're leaning." I rolled my eyes, but later, walking home, I caught myself smiling for no reason. Small moments kept stacking up. He brought me my favorite tea without asking. I proofread his essay without him asking. We traded playlists, mine soft and moody, his loud and hopeful. He started texting less, talking more. I started expecting less, laughing more. One night in the library, he pushed a book toward me. "Read page 112, he said. It was underlined. "Trust once rebuilt is stronger than before because it has been tested." I closed the book slowly. "You didn't write that." "No," he said. "But I wish I had." Something inside me loosened. The tiniest thread of forgiveness. Almost invisible, but there. On Friday, we stayed after closing to help Maya wipe down tables. "Why are you still here?" I asked him. "Because you are," he said. "And because I'm not running from awkward anymore." "You used to run?" "Every time," he said. "But you make me want to stay put." I looked at him, really looked, how his hands moved when he spoke. Slower now, grounded. The boy who once chased dares now learned the art of staying still. Weeks passed. The tension eased, replaced by something quieter, steadier. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were no grand gestures. Just inside jokes, shared books, and the comfort of someone choosing to show up every day. Sometimes he'd stop by the cafe just to sit in silence while I worked. Sometimes I'd drop off notes at practice. Quotes, sarcasm, fragments of peace. We were rebuilding, brick by cautious brick. One rainy afternoon, we ended up in the old art building, hiding from a sudden storm. The walls smelled of paint and clay. Someone had left an easel by the window, half-finished sketch still taped to it. "Ever draw?" he asked. "Once, badly." He smiled. "Show me." I picked up the pencil, hesitated, then drew the outline of a coffee cup. He added steam curling from it. It looked nothing like real life, but we laughed anyway. "Progress," he said. "Disaster," I corrected. "Same thing sometimes," he said, and for once, he was right. By mid-semester, he had started volunteering at the student center, mentoring the new players, helping with community clinics. When I asked why, he shrugged. Coach said I had to do something useful with guilt. I told him that was the most honest thing he'd ever said. One evening, we found ourselves again on the library steps, the same place where he'd once sat across from me, grin sharp enough to start a war. Now the grin was softer, quieter. The air was cool, the streetlights glowing in rows. He shifted closer, hands clasped in front of him. "Can I?" he asked. I nodded. He took my hand, warm and sure. "This time," he said softly, "there's no bet. Just me hoping you'll stay." I studied his face, searching for the flicker of performance I'd once hated. It wasn't there. And, for the first time, I believed him. We sat there long after the lamps dimmed. He told me about his mom's recovery, about his grades finally steadying. I told him about a scholarship application I'd been too scared to submit. "You'll get it," he said. "You always do when you stop doubting. You talk like you know me." "I'm learning," he said. That made me smile. "You still have exams before you pass." He laughed quietly. "Then I'll study." When he finally stood, he didn't let go of my hand right away. "Still friends?" he asked. "For now," I said. "And later?" I looked up at him. "We'll see." He nodded, that rare seriousness returning. "I can live with 'we'll see.'" "Good," I said, "because that's all you get." He squeezed my hand once before letting go. It wasn't dramatic. It was steady. And steady, I realized, was the closest thing to magic I'd ever known. That night, as I walked home under the faint drizzle, Sophie texted. So, leaning turned into walking together? I sent back one word, maybe. Because that's what it was. Not falling like before. Not blindly or too fast. Just leaning toward something that felt almost like peace. Chapter 10. Steady, not safe. Spring came softly. The air turned lighter. The trees outside the cafe dusted green again. I worked my last morning shift before finals when the bell jingled, and there he was. No nerves this time, no tension. Just Liam, hood down, smile easy, holding 2 cups. One for you, he said. No surprises, you ordered it yesterday. Thanks, I said, taking it. You learned. I had a good teacher. He slid into the chair across from me. So, scholarship interview? This afternoon, I said. I'm trying not to think about it. Then don't. Think about what you'll do after you get it. I laughed. You sound confident. I'm borrowing yours, he said. Later, after the cafe closed, she waited outside. I thought you had practice, I said. I skipped. Why? Because you're more important than drills, he said simply. I rolled my eyes. Flattery's outdated. Honesty's new, he said. That one made me pause. We walked through campus, past the blooming magnolias and quiet benches. It felt like the same path from months ago, but the air had changed. So had we. You ever think about how this started? He asked. Too often. He smiled. Would you change it? I'd change the hurt, I said, not the lessons. He nodded. Same. We stopped by the library steps, our old place. The city hummed softly, dusk settling around us, like a memory. He turned to me. You once said trust is slow. I remember. Then I'll keep walking slow, he said. With you, if you'll let me. I met his eyes. No performance. No promises dressed in gold. Just truth. Okay, I said. He blinked. Okay? Yes, I said, smiling. But no bets, no rules, just real. He laughed quietly, relief breaking through. I can do real. He reached for my hand, not asking this time, but waiting in that breath between us. I didn't pull away. The streetlight flickered above us, the world soft and small. This feels safe, I whispered. It's not, he said, but it's steady. Steady's enough, I said. Weeks later, the email came. Congratulations, your scholarship has been approved. I screamed, dropped my phone, and laughed until I cried. Liam showed up 5 minutes later, out of breath. You got it? I nodded, still laughing. He lifted me off the ground in a hug, quick, startled, perfect. When he set me down, he didn't let go right away. You get it, he said. We did, I wanted to say. But instead, yeah, he kissed my forehead, gentle and grateful. No fireworks, no music, just the quiet proof that we'd made it through. Months later, people still whispered about the bet, like it was ancient gossip. We didn't correct them. We didn't owe anyone the ending. We had ours. Mornings at the cafe, study nights, slow walks home, laughter that didn't need fixing. The kind of love that wasn't about winning, just choosing, again and again. And sometimes, when the rain started to fall, I'd glance up from the counter and see him outside, waiting under his old hoodie. He'd hold up a cup, grin crookedly, and mouth, "It's just coffee." And every time, I'd open the door. The end.